My name's Nikki, and I've never fully ridden a black trail.
Welcome, fellow punters, to another episode of me helping a mountain biker step up their level of difficulty. This time we have Nikki, a resident of Squamish, BC, and a fairly new mountain biker.
So I've been riding mountain bikes for about a year and a half now.
And she is dying to get herself down a black rated trail. So that's precisely what we are going to do today. I'm going to help Nikki set up her bike, figure out some new techniques, help her believe in her ability, and then take her one turn at a time down a trail called Angry M. So let's kick things off by hearing about how she chose her bike.
Got on a mountain bike for the first ride, and it was great, but I hated the climbs. Here we are.
So you got an e-bike.
I got an e-bike.
The other thing to know is that Nikki is a bit of a badass riding here, especially with the condition that she has.
I've had rheumatoid arthritis since I was a kid. I have it in a lot of joints in my body, 87 in particular.
Meeting near the bottom of the trail, we get things underway.
Do you know how you have your bike set up?
No.
So
I get on it and I ride it.
I had a quick jump around on her bike to get a feel for how everything was set up before I dived into more detail. And I started things off by asking about the most important thing when it comes to bike setup.
When did you last check your tyre pressure?
I actually run my tire pressures really low. I kind of just give a feel at it. It's where I would normally run it.
It's great to know that Nikki is using a lower tyre pressure, but it's impossible to tell how much air is in a tyre just by feeling it. I recommend everyone picks up one of these digital tyre pressure gauges. The easiest way to ruin a ride is with a puncture, and this is a crucial way of preventing that doesn't happen.
We've got 10 psi in the front, which is very, very, very low, even for a plus size tyre. And in the back you have 10.
As these are plus tyres here, pressures will sound a little bit lower than usual. I suggested that we start off with 15 psi in the back and 13 in the front. It's important to have grip on the front wheel, and that's why most people have a slightly lower tyre pressure there. Because Nikki has her pressures a little bit too low here, the tyres are going to be squirming around underneath her, especially with plus tyres. It's time to get to the suspension.
Do you know your suspension settings?
No.
Okay.
It's a great idea to use the recommended settings from the manufacturer as a starting point. I started off by counting how much rebound there was on the fork and discovered that there were 8 clicks out from closed here.
Do you know what rebound is?
How it springs back? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Rebound is basically controlling how it bounces back. The more rebound you have, the slower that will be. So if you have no rebound, then you've got your pogo stick.
Yeah.
If it's too much, then it's like...
Then I counted the clicks on the rear and found that there was hardly any rebound damping at all, with the rebound adjustment completely wound off. With no internet service, I checked the back of her fork to see that the manufacturer recommends 60 psi for Nikki's weight. When I connected the pump, it said 64 psi. Now, a good thing to note is that when you set up an e-bike, you're probably going to want to run more air than this sticker will normally say. And on the website, the manufacturer recommends 10 psi more. In this instance, it was actually useful to check how much sag there was on this suspension fork. But when I looked at the O-ring, I was wondering why the whole fork looked a bit odd. After some confusion, I realised that the fork was actually sucking down a bit. This was probably happening because of the seal inside the fork that separates 2 of the air chambers, and it had likely become worn and needed to be replaced. It could also be because of the cold air temperatures that we had outside, but this is how I can explain it without going into too much detail. If you see this on your own fork, I recommend taking it down to your local suspension service shop. But for now, it's not the biggest issue in the world for Nikki. The rear shock was getting around 25% sag, and we probably want this to be closer to 30. Riding with no rebound damping here to help slow down the return of the shock, and a little bit too much air in there, Nikki is going to feel like she's being pushed forward a lot. So I started off by letting out some air in the rear shock, and then adding some air to the suspension fork. And on both of them, I added some more rebound damping. By having the suspension a bit harder and the rebound a bit slower, the bike should start to feel more predictable and more stable in most of the situations Nikki will come up against. And you can see in this slow-mo clip that the bike suspension is now pretty well balanced. Next up was the handlebar position. Nikki's bars were perhaps rolled a little bit too far back. Now this will make it a bit tricky to get the weight on the front wheel of her bike, and that's going to affect how she steers. I also noticed that her levers weren't completely level, with one tilted up higher than the other one. Some people, however, will just ride their bikes like this, and I decided that I didn't actually want to change this for Nikki right now. So I measured how they were set up and put them back into the same place after rolling her bar forward.
We're gonna do one final thing.
All right.
I think your handlebars are too high. And it can be quite a big change to experience. Yeah. But so what we're gonna do is we're just gonna knock it down one spacer.
You nervous?
No, it's just a new bike. Just gotta get used to it, right?
So what this is gonna do is it's gonna make it just a bit easier again to push onto that front tire. Okay, up we go, and down we go. Now I'm gonna do 2.
How do you think the changes are gonna feel?
Seems like good.
It seems like good.
Seems like good.
Have a big run. That's like 300 times better than what it was.
And what did Nikki think about all these changes I'd made to her bike?
I was definitely a little bit nervous that it was going to be like a completely new bike. A lot of things were changed, but they all felt quite good. I was worried about the tire pressures being a little higher, and I actually quite enjoyed them.
If we need to make more changes, we'll do it up on the warm-up trail, and that's where we're heading off to next. We warm up on this section of trail and go through some techniques that will really help Nikki in her mountain biking. The first thing I noticed was the position of her feet on the pedals. They were a little bit too far forward. When riding, it's important to drop your heels down, and that's made more manageable by having the pedal axle just behind the ball of your foot. The second thing was how her hands were positioned on the handlebar. You can see that they're very far in and quite close to the stem. This handlebar measures 780mm wide, which is a bit on the large size for Nikki. I asked her to try and put her hands more on the edge of the handlebar. This will allow her elbows to come out more and be in a more stable position. Speaking of body position, you can see on these rollers that her knees are far too close together. The bike needs to have space to move up and down so that the torso can stay level. Having a wider knee position will make this a lot easier to achieve. And paired with this is moving the arms up and down. Not only will you be able to generate speed from the terrain by pumping rollers like these, you'll be allowing the bike to track the ground more effectively, maintaining better balance and grip on the tyres. Nikki had fairly stiff arms here and she was getting rocked around by the trail, and this is going to lead to feeling unsafe on the bike. We even removed the bike and just practiced running down the trail, which was actually pretty effective. And by the end, we got to a point where you can see Nikki's head stable as she rides down the trail and in a very strong body position. We were ready to hit the trail, but before we get there, I can excitedly tell you that Team Slow and Awkward jerseys are now available in my merch store. There are limited quantities available and the quality of these tops is fantastic. I wear medium jerseys and this medium is spot on. Every bit of profit from my merch goes straight back into making videos just like this, so hit the link in the description below and pick one up before they're all gone. Angry M, a Squamish black classic, is very popular with the locals and visitors alike, and was built by Dr. Clark Lewis. This trail was chosen by Nikki and we're going to work our way down and get her confident on everything. But we'll start off with a crucial e-bike technique.
Do you know how to use walk mode? You know, if you hold in the lever. Forgive me if I'm teaching.
I'm using walk mode.
Ah, that's
but
not.
I just don't know.
How to use a Shimano motor. So what you do, hold down the button, and now look.
I just kind of push it up, and I'm like,
yeah.
I guess it's easier. Not really though, but.
The trail is full of some of the best turns in the world, so we need to give Nikki an easy formula for getting round them well and not overcomplicating things. I start off by telling Nikki how it's important to have weight on your front wheel, and the best way of achieving this is by pushing on the bars rather than just leaning forwards. If this video was just about turns, I could be here for an hour, but a really good technique here is pointing your shoulders where you want to go. As there are lots of banked turns down this trail, it's not as important to lean the bike over, and Nikki can work on that at a later date.
This is a Remy Gauvin tip to give full credit, especially on this kind of turn where it's just like a gradual berm. Just makes things easier.
Nikki also needed to be more centered on the bike. When things get scary, most riders will move their weight back and this affects steering. Being more centered and pushing on the handlebars will allow her to go where she actually wants to go. And you can see here on the third effort that she nails it.
Shoulder. Oh, beautiful. Much better body position, big difference.
With that done, we run through how to analyze a section of trail. It's something that a lot of riders don't do, and I'd like to encourage it more. I wanted to show Nikki that if she knows exactly where she needs to go, she's going to have more confidence riding a trail. After looking at some lines on this first section, I asked Nikki to run the play.
Start from there. I want you to use both hands like this, like you're on train tracks, and just tell me everything about where you're going to be going.
By running this play, she's rehearsing and visualizing what's going to happen. I then rode down the trail as slow as I could to show her just how in control you can be. But when it was her turn, she struggled, and she shared that she didn't feel she knew what was coming up ahead. And then when she headed up for a second go, the same thing happened. So we actually got off the bike again and ran the play once more. And on her third attempt, she looked ahead a lot more and negotiated her way down perfectly.
What? Nice!
Yeah! Easy. There's nothing too big or too small to track walk, Chris. Building confidence every step.
As we moved further down the trail, breaking down each segment, I started to notice that there was a clear correlation between Nikki succeeding on a section and the amount of track walking that she'd done. The magic number turned out to be 3 times. Nikki was pretty patient with me on this because it's probably quite annoying to go up and down so much, but it was working and she was building a lot of confidence. So much confidence, in fact, that she started to look at tougher features and think they were more manageable. While walking out this section, she spotted the drop line.
I can't do that. So...
Why can't you do that?
This guy?
Yeah.
No, I'm in.
Go and have a look. Go and have a look. Look, you haven't even seen the feature yet.
I don't know. My only worry about doing the drop, I guess, is not actually being set up for it right when I get here.
As long as you're not like done.
Yeah.
Kind of think I'm gonna try and go like that. I mean, I can show you what happens.
Yeah.
I headed back up and popped off the drop, and Nikki started to believe in her abilities.
What do you think?
Oh, looks okay. I don't know. It looks like a solid 8 out of 10 for me.
You would, as in terms of difficulty.
My confidence is like an 8 out of 10.
I like it. Run the play down to the drop 3 times, lots of words, and do it slow.
Nikki was fully in control over what she wanted to do. So after some more track walking, she headed up, crushes the first tricky bit of this trail, gets to the drop, and
I'm not doing it.
decided it wasn't on the cards today. But I'm sure she'll build up to it in the future. Nikki goes back up and nails the wide line that most people take on this trail. Comparing how she was on the first section of trail to now, you can see how much her confidence has grown, and it's awesome to see.
Yeah! Look away from this bit.
Okay.
How many steps are there that you have to roll down?
5.
Turn around and count them.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Well, I guess that's not really a step.
3.
Yeah.
Run the
All
play
right.
again.
Fine.
More track walking and success followed, and we came up to one of the most technical parts of this trail. It's pretty steep, full of roots and rocks, and requires a healthy dose of commitment. Nikki was clearly nervous here, and it's an intimidating section. But we stuck to the plan, track walking and talking out all of the sections, addressing any of her concerns. Showing her what it looks like when someone's riding down not at a million miles an hour, and visualizing what will happen and how she's going to react. Then it was time for Nikki to get up there and take it on.
I was definitely like, you could see like the terrified look in my face at the end there. I hope you got that. I didn't die.
You just did the hardest bit on the trail.
Yeah, I was a little fucked up. I'm not gonna lie.
First time.
Felt better. I honestly though, like coming towards the end, like I was kind of like, okay, I know I need to be focusing more on like knees and arms and braking and all this stuff, and I'm like, I'm gonna go.
She'd done it, the hardest section of this trail, and she got down the whole thing clean and first time without any hesitation. What a boss. There's one final rough technical section on this trail, and as per usual, we ran the play tactic, and once again, she crushes it.
Your torso, and we filmed that in slow-mo so we can show it, was just like, ooh, perfect. But now, crux move coming up.
Angry M finishes with this rock slab corner, and it can be pretty tricky. There are two lines, either going up and around the rock, or taking it on the inside. We had a look at both, and it was up to Nikki about which one she wanted to do. Running plays for both lines, she rehearses exactly where she needs to go. I rode the rock slab line for her, as I believe it's a bit simpler than that techie inside. But which one would she choose?
I think she's gonna do the rock line.
The lower line or the high
I
line?
think she's gonna do the high line.
I think
she'll do it.
I think she's going to want to do the low line. I think she's going to pedal into the skep to the top. If I'm wrong, I'll for sure leave this in.
And I was completely wrong as Nikki starts rolling up the rock, breaking it down into two parts, which is pretty smart. And on her fourth roll into it,
Yeah!
Somehow, I was like, I'm gonna save this.
Oh my god!
Dude.
Double F5. You know it was there!
Yo, do you see that? I stopped it with my ass.
Just have to look down that way a bit more.
she goes straight back up to try again and just gets caught up on that pesky tree.
Oh, again. So much closer though.
Every time.
But I think we can all agree that we can definitely give her this one. It had been a long day of filming and Nikki had killed it. But is she gonna change her approach to riding from now on?
So the track walking stuff is definitely better. It helped me choose obviously the right line to go down. It also gave me the confidence just to go down things. I'm like, oh, I didn't think that I would want to do that many step downs in a row. I usually am like, oh, I'm gonna pop off here. I'm gonna walk it for today, and then next time I'll do it.
I think this is going to be a running theme in these videos, is that you're much better than you think you are. Throughout the day, your confidence just got more and more, you got more and more chatty, you're making more jokes, and it was just so cool to see.
Hit the like button if you've made it this far, and most importantly, watch it twice. Cheers, punters. I'll see you next time.